Okay, good afternoon to anyone who is currently experiencing afternoon. For other people, it might be evening or morning or nighttime, but for me, it is afternoon. So, good afternoon. I'm going to wait a moment to see how many people we have here before I start talking too much. But I see that Rhea is here, Evelyn is here, Elvira is here. Hello, all of you. Thank you for joining early from YouTube. I see Emrus Faretin is here. Hi, teacher. Hello, hello. Shazada Hashmi is here. Hello. Another Elvira is here from Facebook. Hello. Judy, hello. All right. So yeah, today it's not really an English lesson. It's more about Tanja Kramer, hello. It's more about the process of learning English and some of the goals that you might have when learning English. And really what it means to be a native speaker and whether or not you should try to speak like a native speaker and what it means to speak like a native speaker. That's going to be one of the biggest things today. What is a native speaker? How do they speak? And is that important for you? Let me just double check to make sure. Yeah, and part of this is because I posted something on Facebook yesterday, and a few people seemed to think that it was very negative or rude or harsh. And I knew that some people would probably think that, but I don't think that it was rude, strong, or rude or harsh. It was a little bit strong, but strong is not bad. Strong is not rude. Um, I didn't include any emotion in the post. There were no exclamation marks. I wasn't yelling. But if you read it the wrong way and you maybe put your own ideas into it, I understand how it could sound rude. So we're going to talk about that today. And we're going to start by actually reading the post that I am talking about. So I'm going to read this post to you from Facebook, and I'm going to read it very quickly. And then to help us better understand the post, we're going to ask, what is a native speaker? What does it mean to speak like a native speaker? Do native speakers make mistakes? And is it okay to make mistakes as a native speaker? And then, is it important to speak like a native speaker? And then we will go back to the post so that we can look at it in detail. So that's what we're doing today. Also, the reason I talk about these things and the reason that I reply to my comments is because I care. I care about my page. I care about you. I care about helping you. And my goal is never to criticize anyone. So when my followers think that I am criticizing them, it doesn't make me upset, but it makes me feel like I owe them an explanation. I want to make sure that they really understand what I'm saying because it's never my goal to make people feel bad. Okay, let me check the comments for one moment. I see a lot of people saying hello. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Jurad Hankoki, hello. Tanya Islam, hello. Ramudantu, hello. Okay, but now let's take a look at this post that I am talking about. So, here is the post. I said, stop complaining about how native speakers speak. They aren't going to change the way that they speak their language just because you haven't practiced listening enough. I think that that is pretty straightforward. Stop complaining about how native speakers speak. One person thought that this was rude because I didn't add the word please. Please stop complaining. And my response to that is that I'm a teacher. I'm giving you advice. I'm not trying to help myself. I'm trying to help you. Um, when you're giving someone advice, you don't need to say please. You can if you want to, but at the same time, this was one of these little posts on Facebook where if you add too many words, the background disappears and it doesn't look nice anymore. So I had a limited amount of space to use, and these are the words that I chose. Um, but yeah, if your mom told you, stop complaining about that, you probably wouldn't say, that's rude. If your best friend told you, stop complaining about that, it's not helping you, you probably wouldn't say, that's rude. But when I tell people, stop complaining about that, it's not helping you, it's only hurting you, people seem to think that it's rude. But yeah, obviously, not everybody thought that it was rude. I understand that this was only a very small percentage of people who felt this way, but I still want to talk about it to make sure that everyone understands. Also, when you see me do posts like this on Facebook, when I have a post that has the colored background, it's always very short. You can't make these long. So I always follow it with more information in the comments. So when you see me write something like this, always check the comments because you can see right after that, I wrote a much longer explanation in more detail. So that's the first thing. Before you decide that I'm being rude or before you decide to get upset by what I'm saying, look in the comments to read the rest of the information. Um, so here is what I said in the comments. If you need someone to speak slower or use simple language, it's fine to tell them that. But the number of people who say things like native speakers should speak slower is incredibly frustrating. The problem is not the way that they speak. The problem is that you haven't spent enough time listening to real English. So I can understand why people might get upset there. I'm saying that the thing that you are not doing is the problem. And that's true. The way that native speakers speak is not the problem. Because guess what? There are millions and millions and millions of people who can understand native speakers. So it's not them who are the problem. It is you. You are the problem. And that's not rude to say that. Sure, it's direct, it's honest, but I'm a teacher and you are adults. It is my job to be honest with you and give you the information that you need to succeed. I'm not going to treat you like a baby. I believe in you. That's why I am honest with you. Um, so the problem is not the way that they speak. The problem is that you haven't spent enough time listening to real English, or you haven't practiced enough. And when I said that, a few people put words in my mouth. They said that I was saying something that I was not saying. So I saw two people say, you are calling people lazy. That's rude. No, I never called anyone lazy. I said you haven't practiced enough. There's nothing rude about that. What I'm saying is that you just need to continue practicing and it will get easier. Nothing about anyone being lazy. Um, when you say that they are the problem, all you are doing is taking the responsibility off of yourself and guaranteeing that you will never be able to understand them. So when you say the way that they speak is too difficult, that's just guaranteeing that you are never going to try and you're never going to understand them. If you say, this is too difficult, you're never going to do it. So I'm trying to tell you, stop saying that it's too difficult. Stop saying that they are the problem and just continue learning, continue listening, and every day it will get easier. So millions of people have learned to understand normal English. You can too. That's what I said. So I don't think this is rude. Millions of people have learned to understand normal English, and you can too. Really, I believe in you. But you won't unless you accept the fact that you need to practice listening more instead of blaming other people for your weaknesses. So, what I'm saying is that all of you can learn to understand native speakers. You just need to keep practicing. But if you keep saying things like, it's too difficult, I don't like the way they speak, I want them to change, you're never going to be able to because they are not going to change the way that they speak their language. Just like if I were learning your language, I wouldn't go to your country and say, the way that you speak is stupid. I want you to change it so that it becomes easier for me. That would be really rude. And that's what people are doing. They're saying the way that native speakers speak is bad and it's too difficult. They should change it. That's not how it works, you guys. And I know that not all of you do this. I know that this is probably less than 20% of people that think this way. But there are people that think this way, and that is why we are talking about it. So that's the introduction here. That's kind of why we are talking about this topic today, even though we've already talked about it many times before. But remember, when you see me write 2 or 3 sentences and there's a color on the background and it's a very short message, check in the comments to see the rest of the information because I always follow it up with more details. Um, Also, I do want to give you one more thing that I wrote recently, um, just because I know that most of you have not seen this and I want to mention it. Um, so someone said that it was harsh. Harsh is like strong, kind of hurtful, not nice, not soft. So I said, there's a big difference between being harsh and honest. Nothing I said was negative or critical of anyone in any way. So I didn't say anything about any of you. I didn't say you are lazy. I didn't say you are stupid. I didn't say anything like that. Um, I am a teacher and I teach adults. It is my job to tell you basic truths so that you can make progress. It's my goal to tell you some things to make sure that you understand them. Sometimes you might not like them, but they're true. I rarely give my opinion on this page. The things that I tell you are almost always things that are facts or things that I have seen over my 12 years of experience teaching. I don't just give you weird ideas that I have or try to make up things that seem fun. I tell you things that I know are true. Um, so it's my job to tell you basic truths so that you can make progress. If you perceive those truths as negative, so if you hear those things that I'm saying and you think that they are negative, that is probably because one, you are reading it in the context of your own language and culture, instead of just reading the words that I wrote. So, different cultures communicate in different ways. So, for example, in the United States, we are very direct. If there is a problem, we talk about the problem. If someone did something wrong, we tell them that they did something wrong. So we are honest. That is how we solve problems. Um, everyone is honest, but they are honest in different ways. In the United States, when we think something, we say it. In some cultures, you are much softer and you say things like, I think maybe you might want to do it like this. And that's how you expect other people to say it. But that's not how everyone says it in every culture. So when you listen to me speak or you read the things that I write, I want you to understand that I'm not going to write them the same way that you would write them in your language, because your language is a product of your culture. And I am not a part of your culture. So that's the first thing. Just remember that when you listen to me or you read the stuff that I write, try to not think about your language. Just look at exactly what I am saying. Oh, he said this. Don't say, "Oh, that means I'm lazy," if I didn't say the word lazy anywhere. So that's the first part. Two, you are not reading it in the context of this is my teacher speaking. Um, so remember, you guys, anytime that I write something, I'm writing it to help you. I'm never going to write a post to make you feel bad or to judge you or to be rude to you. Why would I do that? So if you ever see a post and you think that that is what I'm saying, read it again and read some of the comments. Maybe take a deep breath, close your eyes, and just for a minute, remember, this is Teacher Mike, who has been helping me for many years, and he's always given me good advice. So right now, if I see this thing that he's saying and I think it's really rude, you might not understand something and you should try reading it again. Now, there are also times where people say really rude things to me. And in those situations, I'm a human and I don't have 1 hour a day where I sit at a desk and reply to comments. I'm replying to comments all day from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed. So sometimes someone says something really rude to me, and I reply back because I'm a human and maybe I'm not having a good day. In those situations, yeah, I might say something that is strong or a little bit rude because you said something like that to me. But I'm never going to create a post for everyone where I say something like, you are lazy or you are stupid. So if you feel like that's what I said in one of my posts, just read it again. Maybe ask a friend to read it with you to see if they can understand it better. Read some of the comments because I'm never going to create a post to try to make you feel bad. There's no reason why I would do that. Okay. And so those are two of the reasons why you might feel like my post was negative. The third reason why you might feel like my post was negative is that maybe you read my post and you immediately understand, oh my gosh, this is 100% true. And this is what I am doing. Oh my gosh, I'm doing this. And then you feel bad and you feel like I'm attacking you. And you decide to say, that's rude. When the reality is that I just showed you something that you are doing and it made you uncomfortable. Um, and that's what should happen when you see something that you are doing that is not helpful. That's how you grow. You see things that you are doing and you feel uncomfortable. So you change and you start doing the things that you should do. Yeah, so that's basically the post that was on Facebook yesterday. You're welcome to go back and look at it if you want to, but now I want to follow this with more information about being a native speaker. What does this mean? Because this is going to help you understand that post. Because again, in that post, the message was basically this: native speakers speak this way. They aren't going to change the way that they speak. So the only thing that you can do is practice listening. Practice listening is the only thing that is going to help you understand them. Complaining about the way that they speak is not going to help you at all. So that was the message of that post. I don't know how that's rude, but I understand why people from different cultures might think that it was rude. But what is a native speaker? So a native speaker is just someone who speaks English as a first language. If English is your mother tongue or your first language, you are a native speaker. So all of you are native speakers, just not native speakers of English. You cannot become a native speaker because native, the only thing that it means is that it's your first language. You did not have to study it as an adult. This is the first language that you learned. If you are that, you are a native speaker. It doesn't mean that you never make grammar mistakes. It doesn't mean that you know everything. It just means that it is your first language. So native speakers do make mistakes when they speak sometimes. You make mistakes in your first language sometimes. I know there are some people who say, no, that's not true. I never make mistakes. Yes, you do. Sometimes you're speaking very fast and you make the wrong sound. Sometimes you're speaking very fast and you say the wrong word. Sometimes you have difficulty understanding other people. So no one is perfect in any language. That's the first thing. No one is perfect. Native speakers are not perfect in any language. I'm not perfect in English. You are not perfect in your first language. Um, so a native speaker is just someone who speaks the language as their first language. Um, Now, what does it mean to speak like a native speaker? This depends on what you think. So lots of you say, I want to speak like a native speaker. But when you say that, I don't actually know what you mean. But I think that what most of you mean when you say, I want to speak like a native speaker, I think what you mean is, I want to speak with the fluency of a native speaker. I want to be able to listen to English just like a native speaker. I want to speak clearly so that native speakers can understand me easily. I don't think that you mean you want to have a native speaker's accent or you want to use all of the slang that native speakers use. And I don't recommend those things because native speakers are different in each area. So I am from Silver Spring, Maryland. Maryland is a state in the United States. If I drive 40 minutes and I go to Baltimore, Maryland, and I speak to the native speakers there, they will immediately know that I am not from Baltimore because I will not understand all of their slang, and my accent will be different from theirs. And that's only a 40-minute drive away. So if I go to any state in the United States, people will know that I am not from there because we all have different accents, different slang, different dialects. So that's the thing. I don't recommend trying to basically choose a specific accent or specific slang that you want to use because it's not going to work everywhere. It's only going to work in one little area. Um, I don't really know what I'm saying with that. Give me a moment to think. Um, I'm saying that what it means to speak like a native speaker. Um, Again, I want you to stop. And I know that not everybody does this. Not all of you say, I want to speak like a native speaker. I know that. I know that. Many of you have made it very clear that it is not your goal to speak like a native speaker. And I am happy about that. Um, I think that the English learning industry has marketed the idea that you need to speak like a native speaker, and they use this to sell courses and make you feel like you don't know enough of this slang, you don't have this accent, so your English isn't good enough. And they tell you that so that they can sell courses, they can sell programs, they can make money. Um, but I want you to understand that you don't need to speak like a native speaker. Yes, improve your fluency. Practice speaking. Improve your listening. Listen often. Improve your vocabulary. Read and listen often. Improve your pronunciation by doing many things. For example, listening to English every day. Focusing on the sounds that you know you have difficulty with. Focusing on the words that you have difficulty with. So continue improving on all of these things. But if you are someone who says, I want to speak like a native speaker, most of you, I recommend stopping. I recommend that you stop doing that. Now, if you live in the United States, I understand. Speaking like a native speaker can be important. because you want to feel like you are a member of your community. You want to feel accepted at work, in your neighborhood, in your community. In that case, speaking like a native speaker is important if you care about it. But if you don't care about it, that's fine too. And that's why I don't want you to let people tell you what your goals should be. Your goals should come from inside you. I want you to think about what is important. What do I need? What do I want? How much time do I have? Is it even possible for me to reach that goal with the amount of time that I have? So, yeah, I'm not telling you you need to speak like a native speaker. I want you to decide what your own goals are. But I do want many of you to understand that you don't need to speak like a native speaker. Um, Also, maybe you want to speak better than a native speaker. That's possible too. People who get to a C2 level often have better grammar than average native speakers because native speakers don't we don't learn grammar in school. We learn grammar through listening and conversation. And if you spend lots of time studying grammar and practicing speaking, you can actually develop better grammar than a native speaker. And I'm sorry I'm not reading the comments right now. I want to continue talking about this for a moment, but I promise that I will read the comments later. So native speakers make mistakes when they speak. Um, and one thing, so a lot of people, this is kind of why I posted that thing on Facebook. A lot of people say things like, I hate the way native speakers speak. They don't pronounce words correctly and they don't use correct grammar. Okay, so you are judging someone for not having a great education. That's kind of rude. Um, Also, lots of people say things that you learn are not correct. For example, you might hear people in the United States say something like, I ain't got no money, or I ain't got no time, I ain't got no friends, instead of saying, I don't have. And yes, according to traditional grammar rules, I ain't got no is not correct. However, native speakers use language to express their identity and their culture. So when people say things like this, they know that in standard English, it's not correct, but they're speaking that way because it is a part of their culture. It's how the people around them speak. It's how their friends speak. It's how their family speaks. So when they speak that way, they are trying to show their identity and express themselves. And that is beautiful. That is part of being a human. You do this in your language too. You don't just speak, you speak to say who you are as a person. You use your language to share your culture. So when people say things like, oh, Americans can't speak English and I don't like that they say this. Okay, that's fair. That's fair that you don't like it because it's difficult for you. But when people say they should stop speaking like that, no, they shouldn't. Just if you want to understand them, it's your responsibility to practice listening. they're not going to stop speaking the way that they have spoken their whole lives. They're not going to change their culture and their identity just because you don't want to practice listening. And that's what that whole post was on Facebook, was people speak this way because they speak this way, and it's part of who they are in their heart. And it's just weird to say, change your culture because it's too difficult for me to learn English. Like, I understand why you might feel that way, but I can't imagine saying that. Um, but yeah, that's that. What else did I want to say? And then I will read the comments in a moment. Um, oh, okay. Also, so again, native speakers say things sometimes that are not correct in terms of grammar. So we sometimes use grammar that is not correct. For example, someone might say, go back to the same example. I ain't got no. Yeah, that's not correct, but all native speakers understand it when they hear it. Whereas things that English learners say that are not correct might actually cause problems. So when you make a mistake that no one has heard before, it can be very difficult for people to understand it. But when native English speakers say things that are not correct, it usually doesn't create communication problems because it's something that every native speaker has already heard a million times before, and we have accepted it. Um, Sorry, somehow I think I scrolled on the mouse pad and I exited the video for a moment. I'm sorry about that. Um, Anyways, let me read the comments for a moment and reply to some of them. Just because I know I've been talking a lot, and when I'm talking, explaining, I'm not smiling. And I want you guys to know that I'm not angry, so I'm going to read some of the comments. So that's something that existed in every language. Standard language is always different from the common tongue. Yes. So when people complain about English, they're not actually complaining about English. They are complaining about language. Because what I'm talking about, native speakers saying things that are difficult for learners to understand, that's something that happens in every language. That's something that you do in your language too. You say things that people will not learn in language school. Sherlyn Kusher says, it is not necessary to speak like a native speaker unless someone wants to be a tour guide, or build a career. Um, However, I understand what you mean, but I think that even in those situations, it's not necessary. Yes, if you are a tour guide, you want to speak with fluency, you want to have some good vocabulary, you want to be able to express emotions easily using the language. But no, I don't think you need to speak like a native speaker to do that. Um, it might be helpful, but I don't think it's necessary. Alicia, I don't know if it's Alicia or Alicia, but thank you for commenting. I think it has been just a misunderstanding caused by different cultures. I'm from a country where we say things very directly. So yeah, I think so also. So again, some countries are very direct. For example, in the United States, we might say that is wrong, whereas in the United Kingdom, they might say it seems that that is incorrect. Would you like to look at it again? Whereas in Japan, they might say, I'm very sorry, I don't want to bother you. Maybe this is wrong. Would you like to look at it one more time? Maybe. I'm sorry. And that's just an example, but yeah, every culture has a different communication style. And the United States is very direct. So I always tell you what I think. And I don't add words to make it softer because I feel like you've followed me for most of you have followed me for a long time, and you know that I am just trying to help you. Um, so yeah, it can be because of culture. It can also be because you all are English learners. You're not always going to understand everything correctly, and I understand that. Some people love to use Aint. Yeah, so Aint is very common. I use Aint all the time. I don't use it when I'm teaching you because I try to use a bit better grammar when I speak with you. But in my daily conversation, yeah, I use Aint also. So it bothers me when people say things like, I wish everyone spoke like you. Because what you really mean is, I wish everyone spoke like you while you are teaching. But the way that I speak when I'm not teaching is very different from the way that I speak while I'm teaching. And the way that I speak while I'm teaching is a skill. You can't ask people to speak the way that I speak all the time because speaking this clearly in a way that's easy to understand and really carefully selecting words that I think English learners will know, this is a skill that it has taken me thousands of hours to develop. And you can't just tell a native speaker, you need to speak like Teacher Mike, because it's difficult to do this, and this isn't the way that I speak in real life. Sure, in real life, nowadays, I do speak much more clearly than I used to, but that is a result of the way that I speak on camera and in the classroom. When you spend 10, 20,000 hours speaking clearly in the classroom, your muscles in your face and in your throat and everything that you use to create speech, they remember how to move this way. It's called muscle memory. So even when I want to speak fast and naturally with my friends nowadays, it's difficult because I've trained my muscles to produce clear speech. And it's kind of annoying because I don't always want to speak this clearly. But yeah, the way I speak in real life is a little bit different from the way that I speak here. Based on your speech, I conclude that if I want to understand native speakers, I must practice listening. If not, I should speak as I usually do in order to improve my speaking skills. I don't completely understand the second part about speaking, but yes, you are correct in the first part. If you want to understand native speakers, practice listening. That's it. Like I can understand most people from the United States very easily because I've spent 34 years listening to people from the United States. I can understand people from Thailand when they speak English because I spent 10 years living in Thailand. And I can understand most British people when they speak English because I've spent about 10 years working with British people. But when I listen to Australian people, I can understand very little because I've spent very little time listening to Australian people. So that's it. It's just practice listening. Listen more. And that was the whole point of my post on Facebook was complaining is not going to help you with anything. The only thing that's going to help you is listening more. Again, I don't think that that's rude. Looking for a few other ones to reply to. I like this. The authority of natives on language starts to be put in doubt because of the impact of world Englishes. So I understand what you mean, but I'm going to say this a different way that I think will be easier to understand. So if I want to learn Japanese because I want to live in Japan, I'm going to make my goal to speak like a native speaker because almost every native Japanese speaker is from Japan. So if I'm going to live there, I want to speak like them. That's fair. But when you're learning English, English is a global language. So speaking like a native speaker is often not useful or helpful because your goal might not be to speak with other native speakers. Your goal might be to speak with other learners from other countries. So maybe you have a Chinese person and a Mexican person, and they work together, and neither of them are native speakers. Maybe this person is a native Mandarin speaker. This person is a native Spanish speaker. Neither one is a native English speaker. So speaking exactly like a native speaker is not really helpful. What would be more helpful is to speak clearly and in a way that the other person can understand. Um, and I think that's kind of what this person is saying here is that why? Why should you speak like a native speaker? There's not really a reason for that. Unless you plan to live in a country where the first language is English. If you want to live in the UK, if you want to live in Australia, if you want to live in the US, then yes, speaking like a native speaker will help you fit in and feel comfortable in those countries. But for many people, it's just not important. And I talk about speaking like a native speaker sometimes because I know that some people want to do that, and also because I want people to understand what it really means. But I really want to make sure that everyone understands that I'm not telling you that you need to speak like a native speaker. I hate that idea. It frustrates me. It makes me very annoyed that most of the things that we see on the internet are say this to sound like a native speaker. Okay, but if you say that, then lots of other people who are not native speakers are not going to understand it. So why not just say it in a more simple way that everyone understands? And that's what I try to teach all of you. Krishna, I have seen your comment. You do not need to keep sending it. I did not reply to it because it is not a question, but thank you. Thank you for your comment. You don't need to send it a million times. Gonna do one more comment or question to reply to, and then we are going to end this video. I'm gonna find one more question. It's difficult to read them because there are so many from Krishna. Krishna, please do not do this again. You're making it very hard for me to read the comments. Yeah, so here's one more thing. We don't usually speak in grammar mode. I like the way that you wrote that, in grammar mode, in daily life. It will depend on the situation, like professional or academic environment. Yeah, so teachers are usually teaching you the way to say things, to sound educated, to sound professional, to communicate well. We aren't always teaching you the things that people say in daily life because we are worried that you might try to use those in the wrong situations, and that could be bad for you. Um, this is why when I talk about informal language and slang and things like this, I try to be very careful and I try to really explain it in detail. This is a situation where you should say this. This is a situation where you shouldn't say this. Um, but yeah, in daily life, we don't speak perfectly. We're not thinking about grammar too much because grammar usually doesn't really affect your ability to communicate well. If you use past tense instead of future tense, yes, that will confuse somebody. But if you say, she have 10 friends instead of she has 10 friends, everyone's going to understand it. There's not a big problem there. Yes, it's wrong, but it doesn't affect your ability to communicate. So that's another thing I want everyone to understand. It's important to continue improving your grammar, but don't worry too much about making small grammar mistakes. Usually, worrying about your grammar is just going to make you nervous and make it more difficult to communicate. But if you just speak, 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 and you make some mistakes, it's probably going to be easier to communicate. So stop worrying so much about grammar, about making mistakes, and just try to get comfortable speaking and get comfortable making mistakes because you're going to make mistakes. And the sooner you start making more mistakes and seeing that nothing bad happens, the easier everything gets. But yeah, I think that's really what I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to let you guys know that if you want to understand native speakers, you need to listen to them. Saying the way that they speak is bad. It's okay for you to have that opinion, but having that opinion does not help you in any way. The only way that you are going to improve your listening is if you practice listening, because native speakers are not going to change the way that they speak. And it's not fair for you to ask them to change the way that they speak. It is fair. It is fair for you to say, could you please speak slowly while you are talking to me? That's fair. It is fair to say, could you please use simple language when you talk to me? That's fair. But it's not fair to them or to yourself if you say things like, it's too difficult because of the way that they speak. They should stop speaking like that. I don't like it. It's not fair to them because you are telling them that they need to change their whole language and culture and identity. And that's not fair. And it's not fair to yourself because when you do that, you are hurting yourself. When you say it's their fault, the only thing that you are doing is guaranteeing that you are not going to improve. When you say it's their fault, that just says, okay, it's their fault. I don't need to improve. I'm going to stay this way forever. And if you want to, that's okay, but you're not going to improve. So yeah, don't complain about the way that people speak. Instead, just practice listening. That's it. But yeah, I'll come back and read some more of your comments later. Mito Baby or Bebe, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but please do not send the same thing 100 times. That's just like what that other person did, and it makes it very difficult to read my comments. If you do that again in a future video, I will block you from commenting. Especially because your comment is not related to the topic of this video. Please do not do that. But yeah, thank you everyone for joining, and I will see you next Tuesday.